Pastor Ray Johnson and former white supremacist T.M. Garret are erasing the hate. Every Monday, 6 p.m. at WKRA FM 92.7, The Change.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for tuning in today. I am Pastor Ray.
And this is TM Garret.
And we are
erasing the hate.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Thank you on this awesome, wonderful day in Holly Springs, Mississippi, Marshall County, where I grew up in, and went to school in Bahia. So it's awesome to be back out this way. It's been a while since I've just been really traveling out this way in the Holly Springs, but I noticed that you guys have your business here now.
The only business we actually moved here in that area, which is a total coincidence. I mean, our lives are full of these coincidences.
Yeah.
That is, you can't make that stuff up, really.
Right.
We'll talk to you. If you tune in every Monday, we will tell a little bit of the story every time. So not to tell everything right now.
Right, yeah, you'll catch up with our life and the things that we do. But how you like it out here now since you moved from South Haven to out here in Holly Springs?
Well, it was Horn Lake, but it's pretty much like South Haven. It was a suburb of Memphis, and it's technically living, in the city, in a suburb, and with a lot of people around. And it was a coincidence. We decided to just buy property out in the country last year, and we moved a week before the pandemic started. So it was just the right time. We moved, and a week later, everything shut down, and we're sitting there on 6 acres, almost 6 acres.
Yeah.
And it didn't bother us at all. And
what a way to quarantine with all that land and all this stuff. Yeah.
It didn't feel like quarantine because we were fully aware we will be on that land anyway, just by ourselves.
Right.
And so it didn't feel like quarantine at all. So
Right.
It's really awesome.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah. I was born and raised in Bahia, so moving out to Olive Branch, me and my wife decided to do that because we wanted to. School system was good for our children.
Absolutely. DeSoto County has one of the best school systems in the whole country, actually.
Right. So you guys will know about our life story, and you'll catch up with how we, the things that we do, how the things we met each week.
Right.
We'll give each nugget. We want to, like TM said, we want to tell you everything.
All right. And if you missed the backstory, we're not going to tell it every time. Go to the Facebook page, Erasing the Hate Radio Show. Go to YouTube, find Erasing the Hate. Go to Apple Music, you will find it there. Go to Amazon Music, to Google Music, to Spotify. You will find the past 2 episodes on all these platforms, and you can listen to it or you can even watch it and learn about the backstories and go from there and then be up to date. What's going on with us.
They'll learn all about us. But yeah, that's cool that we have this technology now. If you missed it, you can always go back and hear it, and we make sure it's available for you guys on
a rerun whenever you want it.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's actually pretty cool.
Right, awesome. Well, we just want to bring you guys into our discussion tonight. We want to talk about diversity. We're going to talk about diversity on every side and how, the points and powers of diversity and what it means. We just kind of picked it up from, a lot of things that's going on, especially these last 4 years of what people have said has happened. And then just looking at the Biden cabinet and what he's trying to do is bring diversity in that. So, but we just want to talk about it on the side that's going to benefit us in our community. So, as we talk about some of the topics, we're going to get you guys to call in at 662-252-6692 later on in the show, and we'll give you a cue when to call in as we bring the topics up and allow us to talk about them, and just kind of write your notes down, the things you want to ask later on. So,
right. And we're sitting on the weekend and thinking about, okay, what are we going to talk about during the Monday's episode of Erasing the Hate, and really looking at the political environment, not only political in general. This is actually the main topic we should talk about in general. Actually, almost every show, but it will probably flow in every show, and that's diversity. And Ray made this nice guide again, because otherwise we will get lost. No, that's
on
good.
The rabbit trail.
No, that's good. That's good. You mentioned here, like, why it's so important. That's a cultural differences. And there's so many different forms of diversity. Cultural diversity, then ethnic diversity, religious diversity.
Right.
And you have it in language, you have it in sexuality, you have it in all these facets, you have diversity. And one of the main things that I thought about when you mentioned today, hey, let's talk about diversity, I was like, okay, depending where you stand, diversity can be a good thing or a bad thing.
Yeah.
So for some people, diversity is a catalyst for hate, actually.
Right.
And for some people, it's actually a tool and a solution against hate. So why do you think is that?
I think, for one, the fear, the reason why those, it could be a adversity to those, the fear of the unknown, not getting a chance to know a person, not making an opportunity to really hear a person out and know their background. So that's probably one of the ones that may be adversity part of that. And then you have the what I've heard and what my wife said before, I'll forward no more. So you have your, I just want to stick with my own group. This is what I'm used to. Not that I hate anybody else, but I don't want to step out of my comfort zone to get to connect with other people and take the time to know other people and listen to their sides of their life and their culture and things like that. So,
but doesn't lead to prejudices and everything because you don't know what's going on in their lives. I had just a really interesting discussion. I lecture a lot. We lectured actually it was a college in California. There were 3 other formers with us too, and I work with the Simon Wiesenthal Center, and there was somebody from them there too. And we're talking about that. How do you include people? And the one guy said, well, he grew up like in Minnesota, and the only people that were different from him as a white, straight male were some Mexicans that went there. And he said, well, some were hanging out with them, but some were not. But I said, even if you claim or say I've got a friend who's Hispanic. Well, do you you still don't know what's going on behind their doors once they close their doors, right? And that's why I say you need to make friends. You need to learn the cultural aspect too, because and this is the unknown. And then you say, they're different. They do this. And actually, you don't actually know what they do at all.
Surface stuff that you see.
Yeah, because you don't participate in their real lives. It's just hanging out at school, and you maybe play whatever it is, baseball, football, soccer, whatever you're into.
Right.
And that's it. And then you go home, and that's where the family and the cultural life takes place. And you have that in so many. Look, since I live here around Memphis, and it's interesting, the black community, there's so many things white people do not know about the black community. Yeah. And it's just exactly the same thing because, well, they say they have black friends, but when I ask, have they sat at your dinner table last year, the answer is, for the most part, no. And this is the same thing. People close their doors at a certain point, and lock the others out of their lives. And that makes it really hard to learn and get to know a different culture. And that can actually lead to fear. And the problem is fear leads to ignorance, and ignorance leads to hate. And then you have a messed up situation like we have it right now in this country.
Exactly.
And the thing is, we don't have it only right now. I mean, the situation has been like that for decades or even centuries. It was just swimming under the surface so long. And so many people thought, there's no racism. People don't get that right either when they talk about racism, because they think racism and hate is the same thing. They say, I don't know any racist people. I had somebody, I don't know a single racist person in Mississippi. And I was like, what? No, I don't hear anybody saying the N-word. And I said, well, then you don't listen either, because I hear them all the time. White people, I'm like, I'm in the 60s or what? No, this is 2020. And this is really crazy. But a lot of people don't witness that. And they say, I don't know anybody who hates black people. I said, wait a minute. Racism is not only hating the other. There's also a form of racism that is, if you do something that is to the disadvantage of the minority, or on their back, or to your advantage. And that is also racism, even if you do it unconsciously and it's not even intentional.
Right.
This is what
so you do believe that some people are intentionally racist.
Oh, hell yeah! I had. Can you give you one example? And it happened here in Mississippi in early summer. So we wanted to get our roof done. No, actually the porch. And I had a contractor come, And he was looking at the porch, and he was looking around a little bit, and then he said, "Man, your roof needs to be done too." And I said, "Yeah, I know," at some point. And he was like, "Yeah, I know somebody, he's working pretty cheap, even cheaper than the Mexicans." I said, "Look, I don't care." "Well, but I do." I already thought there's something wrong. Then he walked off and started measuring the house for the roof and started dropping the N-word like 5-6 times.
Wow.
And I was saying to my wife, I said, "Okay, I know for sure who's not getting my business."
Yeah.
And I called the guy later out, but I was so perplexed,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know what to do at that moment. Do I chase him off the property? What do I do? I don't know if he's got a gun. There's just things, and the guy knows where I live. And so this is really, really messed up situation, but this exists. I heard we had a protest here in Holly Springs, and there was actually a panhandler calling out a couple black Americans that were there, involved in the protest, and called them the N-word.
Really?
And that just happened like 2 months ago.
Right.
I mean, it happens.
Yeah.
It's not. It's sometimes it's really the intentional racism, and sometimes it's the unintentional.
Right.
But again, we're talking about also erasing the hate. So racism is not always I hate somebody, but it can lead there. And with the environment today, we have that. Like, I hate liberals. I hate conservatives.
Right.
Because of this heated situation that we have. And dehumanizing, and every side is evil for the other side, that makes it really hard, and
especially the ones that's far right or far left.
Right.
And really,
this is a lot what we see.
Yeah.
I don't think that majority of the people are like that, but if you have social media and look at that, and those people are just like just magnified there. They seem to be 10 times louder and bigger and more, and they're sometimes even the minority. But it looks to a lot of people that this is how this country looks like.
Right. And
some people are just chiming in and doing that too. But this is also diversity. It's political diversity. It's also important.
It has nothing to do with just color, just the way of life, the way you do things. And, I want to go back to what you said. You was talking about people going in other people's houses and having dinner. You said when the door's locked, then that's when the culture starts.
Right.
That sparked something in me when you said that, because that's when you can learn about a person. Because guess what? When the doors are closed, how do you think about it? How do black people have dinner with each other? How do they get their kids prepared for bed? Or how do, and how do white people do it? How do Hispanic people do it? That all that has to do with culture, on how you do, what's in your home, and you do it culturally. And because guess what? You saw your mom do it, and your mom saw your grandma do it. And then all those things get to develop, and they become traditional. And then to know that, though, just to know, like you've come to my house and you've eaten at my table, and we've, chatted, and I've come to your house and all that. And so, have you noticed anything different? Like just being at my home, like when we was there one time, did you notice anything different? Like, wow, they do it like this? Or
the thing is, I may be a bad example because I've done it so often that I don't notice it anymore,
Yeah.
But in general, I think it's for white people just sometimes hard to get into the black community, or vice versa. Mm-hmm. I remember being at a voter registration event, and I talked to the one guy, and he was like, "I don't have any white friends. I don't know how to make white friends." And I get the point. I mean, if you grew up in that community, and what are you supposed to do? Knock at somebody's door and hey, can we be friends?
Right.
It is if you don't have anybody who's organizing something. That's what I'm trying to do too. And in my case, I remember one of the first times that I went to an event. We were the only white people, my wife and I, and I didn't feel uncomfortable, but I thought about what they think about me. Like, what's the white dude doing here?
Yeah,
so that was just the part I was thinking. Other than that, of course, I thought, okay, this is different, and the first couple of times, of course. And but when you get to know things that are different, they become normal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And when things are normal, you can't be afraid anymore, because you realize, man, the dude loves his kids just as I love mine,
right.
you know? And he eats with a fork and a knife, and well, chicken, we both eat with our fingers, you know?
Yeah.
it's just, you're like, man, they're so normal.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah.
And people just can't experience that if they don't know. I love these memes, by the way, that are on Facebook when it says white people like such and such, you know, or black people such and such, because that shows about these differences, and I love that. And I think about, oh yeah, that's right. And I was like, oh, don't black people do that? Because I see that, oh, that's something I do. So
yeah.
So
because even with those memes, and you don't like, especially back in the day, used to when a crime happened, people be able to say, oh, a black person did that or a white person did that, because they noticed the difference, even the diversity of crime.
Yep.
The way we do crime and the way we do things, and all that has to do with our cultural makeup, you know, and so you used to be back in the day, you know, especially when I was young, you used to be able to pinpoint out who made that crime or what happened.
But sometimes it's also a regional thing, and that has to do with then prejudice. It's like, you're like, oh, a crime happened in Orange Mound, Memphis. Oh, must have been a black person.
Right.
A dude, who's living there, right? That's the same, like, oh, all the people who commit crimes in Orange Mound are black, so therefore black people are bad.
Yeah.
Doesn't make any sense. The majority of people living there are black. It would be the same, like, all the murders that happen in Maine are committed by white people. They're all bad.
Right.
Well, of course, there's almost only white people living in Maine. I believe there's more bears than black people.
Right.
Literally.
That's the fight with black on black crime. Would you know, that's, you know, people say, why so much black on black crime? You know, why you guys get stirred up when a police officer kills someone and when a black person get murdered? Why people don't get stirred up with that? And so they don't know the differences in the geographic areas and how how it's made up. In those areas that you kill, you most of the time have crime where you stay. You do crime where you live. So
right, and if it's a predominantly black area, this is what happens. And it has also to do with diversity, of course. And well, a lot of white people, when I discuss these things with them, say, "Oh, it's like Black Lives Matter." I'd say, "Oh, all lives matter because not all Black lives matter." What about black on black crime?
Right.
And they always act like the black community doesn't care. I said, dude, if you say the black community doesn't care about the black on black crime, that already shows me that you probably don't have a single black friend. Or all the friends you have, you don't discuss these things. Because I sit down with my black friends and I ask, okay, what's going on in your community? Mm-hmm. What do you worry about? What do you think about when you go out as a black man or black woman in this environment? How do you feel? Because I want to know these things, because I want to help my friends. And if you ask, you will get answers. If you don't ask, and again, diversity. If you don't know, it creates fear. And if you don't ask, you won't know. And that is part of diversity.
Right. So do you think, like, so how can diversity become a plus? Like, you got these areas where, like, your community, your business, relationship, because, like, interracial couples. So how can diversity become a plus? Because, you know, like, the reason why a lot of people don't do diversity because they look at a white person like, oh, you know, they may try to take over what I have. And then you look at a black person, oh, they're going to come mess up what I have or steal what I have. And so, so people run away from diversity in those areas, whether community, business, or relationship. So, but how can they look at it as a plus if they would, you know, do what we just said, you know, maybe go in some people's homes, know about the, you know, get some education on other cultures and stuff like that?
I think it's important to have community organizers who take the lead to do that. And you need community organizers, in this case, from the white and the black community. Or if you have a Hispanic community where you live, then you need somebody from there too. Because you can't reach that community without having somebody from that community. Mm-hmm. When you want like the white conservative community, which, like, in the country, you know,
right.
Then you need somebody from there, even if you don't agree with political things.
Yeah.
But if you want to sit down, if you want to do something for your community, you need to sit down and do it. And then you need to involve somebody from that community. And again, community, it's not only about white and black.
Right, yeah.
You see, I'm white, and I have so many white friends that are so different.
Yeah,
and that's not only because they might be from different countries or whatever, but that too.
Yeah.
But also because of the political background,
or the way you was raised. Like you can be raised different in a different area. So you take a black person that's in the urban community, and you take a black person that was in the suburbs,
right? Or
you put
rural,
them two in
like we're here,
right? So you put them in a room together. And the conversations they don't have anything in common. So that the cultural differences is different, although they're the same color. So
right.
We just don't have to. It's just not just narrowed down to color. It's the way of life.
Correct.
Period.
This is why I said we have to talk about not only the ethnical part. It has to do with if it's urban and rural. If you look at the election,
economics.
If you look at the election too, who voted for who?
Right.
It's sure a liberal and conservative thing, but where do they come from? It's not. The whites are the conservatives and the blacks are the liberals, which is not true. You have maybe a majority there, but it also comes from where demographics, and if you look where people live. Right. And you have, like, in the urban areas, you had way more Democratic voters, and in the rural areas, you had way more conservative and Republican voters.
Right. So that was kind of unique when I was watching them doing the counting of the votes and stuff. How he was going through those maps and say, okay, this is the area, this is most of a Democrat area, and it was those small pockets of towns,
Correct.
That was just so they kind of made up the geographical areas of who. You can almost tell who stayed in those areas.
But you know why that is too? If you look at melting pots and these monsters of cities like New York, if you look at San Francisco, if you look at LA, because you have that melting pot, you have that diversity there. They're not always mingled up, but they mingle up more than it does here in Holly Springs, or if you go to Memphis, or if you go to Jackson, Mississippi. That is different. And therefore, this is the difference too between what does liberal mean? Liberal mean I'm open for change. And conservative means I want to keep my values. I want to keep what I know. I'm not that much open. So see, diversity. So liberal, I'm open for more diversity. And that has also to do because you're in these coastal cities that always were a melting pot, where immigrants came, where different opinions came and different religions. Since this country started, this is what those people know, and they never knew any different. So they only can be liberal and just open and wanting to change, and are not as afraid of diversity because they grew up with the diversity. The diversity has been there since almost whenever,
Right.
And in the country, in the rural areas, well, you don't. You have a lot of people, they've never seen anything but their county.
Yeah.
They don't know anything. And then they see stuff, on TV, and they're afraid. They're really afraid that somebody is coming and taking away what they have, and they want to conserve that. This is literally what it is. They're afraid of that diversity. So this is how can we make it clear? How can we make sure that people understand diversity is not a bad thing? That diversity doesn't mean, no, we're not getting the gang from Mexico in.
Yeah.
This is not what we mean when we talk about diversity. No, this is your neighbors who live the next county or another town, or maybe down the road that you have nothing to do with because you think they're too different.
Right.
And
because a lot of time they can move from another area and move in an area where they could have came out of a urban area, but they've bettered them lives and got economically equipped to move in a suburban area, and that makes that community starts to be diverse.
And richer. I mean, just look at me. I moved from the suburb into the woods, actually. And I know most of my white neighbors are super conservative. And that's fine that they can be that. And we know about each other, how we tick. And this is also important that you have a basic understanding as neighbors, what's going on. You still talk and get to know each other, and put that to the side for a little bit, because then you start recognizing each other as human beings, and that part of your life becomes way more important than a political opinion, or maybe the color of your skin, or maybe your religion. religion is also such a big part, because so many Christians in this country are so afraid of other religions, mainly of Muslims. Look, most Christians I know who are so afraid of Muslims have never met one. They just think, oh my God, they're like Osama bin Laden. They will kill them. They will take over the country, because this is a narrative that's, of course, also fed in the media, sometimes from politicians, sometimes on social media. But they don't know a single one. Said, look, I grew up in a country that has a high Muslim population. Yes, there's a couple extremists that came later as refugees. But the normal Muslim population does not want to take over the country. They don't want to chop off people's heads and stuff like that. No, it's just not true. And this is, once you want to see the diversity, you actually realize that there's more commonalities than diversity.
Yeah, exactly.
And you know that I've taken you to my interfaith events, right?
That's been a
and you realize,
challenge.
especially if you see the three world religions, Christianity, Islam, and Judaism, and then look back at Abraham.
Right.
These are the three Abrahamic religions.
Right, exactly.
It's the same God. Period. No matter what you believe in, it's the same thing. Even if you're an atheist and you believe just in the balance of the universe, it is still the same thing. This is how we were created. So it doesn't matter how you believe in it, you still believe in it. But you don't know until you talk to each other.
Exactly. And so that was good. That interfaith thing was good for me to understand a lot of different things. But listen, we want to hear from you guys. Yeah. Go ahead and call that number 662-252-6692. We want to hear what you have to say about the conversation that we have about diversity, and just kind of give your input. We want to hear what you think, and we want to hear what the community think about being diverse, or bringing, adding people to a cabinet, or adding people to a business or a community, and different things to be able to do that. And what is the cause, and what can happen when we do that, and when we implement different people in a part of that. But there's one thing I have noticed. Like, okay, you and I, 70 babies, pretty much, right?
Yeah.
Yep. So, we came up in a different area now. Because I've seen some of the protesting, I've seen a lot of different things, and back when you maybe had what's that guy name? They got beat in California, Rodney King, right? So that protest versus the protesting today. Do you see a lot of the diversity in today? So what do you think the generation?
Diversity, like 92, it was just more an uproar against the systemic racism,
right?
That, of course, ended up in a riot, and it was less organized.
Yeah,
it died down quicker, and that's it. And that was a little bit similar in 2016. It kept going a little bit longer, and you had groups that kept doing something. But this year is different. This year, I've seen way more diversity. I've seen people of all ethnicities, of all backgrounds, of all religions get up, stand up
for the exact same thing. And when all that when all that started, it didn't start this year. Yeah. That's the unfortunate thing. It's going on for years. But the generation, that's the whole point. Like, what do you think is different from you and I noticing 92? And now we're noticing 2020. So what's the difference? What caused the difference? You think people got more in tune with the diversity, and now the kids are a lot more open to diversity versus maybe when you and I was younger? What do you think about that?
Yeah, of course, because the country is getting more diverse.
Yeah, it
is what it is. It's happening, and you can't stop that. So I think that's one part. Another part is, of course, again, the internet and social media. It is a monster sometimes, and it creates some ugly things, and it's when the ugly heads of hate pop up. But it's also great because kids they go and they look on Wikipedia, they look on YouTube and get the good stuff, and they educate themselves.
Yeah.
And I'm sometimes really surprised about the knowledge and the diversity that those kids pick up. I mean, when your daughter organized the protest in Olive Branch, I was like, Dang.
16 years old, yeah.
Yeah, right. And you had no idea.
No idea. I got a call from the police chief saying, hey, Pastor Ray, I need to talk to your daughter down here trying to get a permit for a protest. I'm like, a permit? How did she know to get a permit?
16 years old, and she even didn't ask you, or, hey, what can we do? They are taking that in their hands, that generation, and that is just great. That is amazing. And it makes it easier to organize, of course, too, with social media and cell phones, and it makes it easier. So, everything has good and bad sides.
Right. So that's what I love about this generation. Gen Z is what they call them, the Gen Zs.
The Gen Z.
They're a lot bolder. They're a lot more open. Open heart, open mind, and then they're culturally. I would say the cultures and the diversity is kind of mixing, and I'm gonna say this because I've noticed it. When we was younger and you had some of the, younger, as a teenager, you see a pickup truck with these big old tires on it. You're like, oh yeah, so that's a white guy drive that. And then you see a rim spinning or different. Oh, that's a black guy driving it. Now you don't know who's who. The cultures are different. I mean, they're intertwining. You got the hip hop culture and all these cultures because you even see it in the music. Country music is involving hip hop, and hip hop is involving country, like Nelly did with Garth Brooks, and then I forgot the guy, and he did with Billy Ray Cyrus. Old Town Road, all these things, and they're implementing. So all those things are coming together and showing that. And that's one of the things I wanted to kind of ask you as well. Like, or have you seen how society is promoting diversity in different things? Because even commercials, you see commercials now. You see a white guy with a black lady and they're married. You see the mixed child, and they just could be talking about Dove soap, but I see things like that.
Absolutely, it's promoted much more. Of course, it has to do with target group because a company, when they want to sell something, they look, what is the target group and how do the demographics look like, and this is how they market it. And actually, that's a good way to see it. Look at your TV, look at the commercials, and you will know how this country looks like. And if you don't like it, well, it is what it is.
Right.
This is just what it is. Of course, it's not as much sometimes in the rural areas. It's of course more in the melting pots, but not only. I mean, I moved to this rural area, and I see a lot of diversity there actually. And as you said, you can't tell. You see the guy with the big spinning rims. And 10, 20 years ago, you would have said, "Oh, that's a black guy."
Right.
And 50% of the case, it's not. And that is just really, really mixing up.
Yeah, so I see a lot
even
of
in the country.
Right, so I see a lot of the black guys who has these big old trucks with these, the lifts kits on them that they real high. You almost had to get a ladder to get them. And so when the door open, when the truck stop and the door open, it just, you never know who's going to come out of it now.
And
so
I think that's good.
It's beautiful.
And this is something I realized that happens more in the rural areas in the country than in the cities, because in the cities you have it very often that you have your it's still a leftover from redlining. Right. That you have your black areas and the white areas. Just go to Memphis.
Yeah,
that's the best example.
Example, yeah.
Go to Fraser is a little bit more mixed, but Orange Mound is almost only black. Then you go. Let's go to Germantown.
Yeah,
it gets wider and wider and wider.
Yeah,
Collierville. Yeah. Not saying there's no black people living there,
right?
But not as many. You see, there's definitely a difference. And then you go to the rural areas. And then you have that white belt around it.
Right.
And then you get the diversity we're talking about, what I said here in the country, which I really like. And I wish we could take that to the cities. But this is just the development. And this is part of systemic racism, actually.
Yeah.
And when a lot of white people say, there's no systemic racism. No, again, I'm not talking about white people hating black people. That has nothing to do with that.
Yeah. It's the root.
It's the root. This is just how this country was built. It was built on white supremacy. It is, unfortunately, this is what it is. And everything we see today, white people benefit from that if they want or not. And I think that is also tricky for a lot of white people to acknowledge that, because are you supposed to feel guilty? Because most white people haven't done anything for it,
Right.
Talking about white privilege. Like they were born like that. They
don't even know it. I mean,
they don't know it, especially because
just
they
like
never
you,
didn't have
like
it.
you born a boy, and then you just doing life, and you don't even have a question like why I wasn't a girl or why you just it just is, and it that's the way it is.
That's
and,
a good way to say it.
And so that is what happened. And so just like with African American, they grow up and they wake up. That's all they've seen. They see this and they know, hey, I need to keep myself in a certain area, not have certain things or not wear certain things because I can get, I can get, seen like this or seen another way, and people could, just picture me in something that I'm not just because I got a hoodie on. I like hoodies, and so, this is the biggest thing that, of course, but some may not know. My church is very diverse. We have Puerto Ricans, we have whites, we have blacks. We also in diversity. We've had people from Southern Baptist background, Pentecostal background, Baptist background, all those. So we even diverse in that. And the hardest part for me, and I guess you can put it like a business part or whatever, but it's evangelical side of things. But it's been hard for my ministry. 10 years we've been pushing this. 10 years, and we've been trying to be more diverse for 10 years. And every time we get to the point where we got it, melt the motors and the gears turning just right, something like 2016 will pop up. And now you got people sharing different parts, not because they're black and they're white, but they're conservative and they're liberal or Democrat. They're Republican, they're Democrat. And most of the time when you see Republican, you see Democrat, you see white, and you see black. And so when you have that in your church and everybody's expressing their feelings based on the political party that they grew up, supporting, then you have that division that creeps in at that time, and it could tear down.
I've seen it. I mean, I've seen it before.
Yeah.
So, but do you think that these political differences, isn't that diversity too?
Yeah, that's
Actually,
that is diversity because it's just a point of opinion and how, and then it's the system on how things are, like the Republican system and the Democrats, what they believe in, what they, how they feel about certain things, and that may be in contrary to what you believe and what you say and what you do. And then you have the religious side, and you have people say, how can a born again Christian be a Democrat when there's baby killers and or something like that? How can you? And then what they feel about with the homosexuals and the LGBTQ community. How do you feel about that? And you're supposed to be a Christian, but you're Democrat, and they okay with that and all that. So you have those things that you fight against on the religious side, and because like you say, America was made off of these things, and even systemic racism, even on the church side, on the religious side, where they use the Bible to have slaves to obey what they're saying, because in the Bible it tells you to obey your master and all that. So they use those things to use for the purpose of superiority.
Look, there's some horrible stuff in the Bible. Go to the book of Leviticus. I mean, if we would follow all these laws, I mean, we both and everybody I know would have been stoned like 5 years ago.
Yeah.
and this is just the thing, there's just some laws. This is what I learned from Judaism, by the way. I'm a lot into Judaism. I go to synagogue and everything.
Right.
And it's also, you have like over 600 laws. Some are do's, some are don'ts.
613, yeah, 613.
And you have do's and don'ts. So which ones are more important, And of course, you have some do's that are more important than don'ts, because if you only do the don'ts but you don't do the do's, then you sit at home and do nothing. And then you can be also the horrible person that goes to church on Sunday and think you're all right just because you put your ass in the pew, on a Sunday, which is not true. So I think it's the balance. What is also ethical, right?
Yeah.
And therefore you can't follow each of the laws, even if you're Christian and you say, okay, which laws did Jesus do away with? I mean, this is why you have so many Christian denominations, and they fight about which laws did Jesus do away and which not. And that's because it's not written down. There's so much room for interpretation, and at the end, and that's what the scripture says. And pardon my friends, just don't be an asshole. You know what I mean? So love your neighbor.
Jesus did kind of capitalize on that because he knew that the fight was with the law. So in Matthew, I think it's chapter 20. If you don't quote me on that. Chapter 20, around verse 30, between 30 and 40, he says, "Love your." He says all these laws. He said, "Love your God with all your heart, mind, body, and soul. Then love your neighbor as yourself." Mm-hmm. He said, "On this hangs all the laws and the prophets." So he had a debate with the guy talking about, "Hey, these folks ain't keeping all these commandments." He said, "Listen, I want you to. These are the commandments I want you to keep. Love God with all your heart, mind, body, soul, and love your neighbor as yourself." If you just
that's one of the commandments.
It makes it simple. Yeah. It's simple. It simplifies everything. Because if you love your neighbor, you're not going to kill him. If you love your neighbor, you're not going to steal from him. You love your neighbor, you're not going to commit covenant or anything like that.
So, and they have lost. Well, then you have your neighbor is gay,
right?
But it also says love your neighbor.
Yeah, love your neighbor.
So which one is more important? Well, whatever. He's your neighbor. Love him, no matter what. And this is the point. And this is just it's just so easy. Just treat others how you want to be treated.
It's simple. He simplified things when he said just love. And so love overcomes all. It overcomes a multitude of sin. So if we love, the Bible says it overcomes a multitude of sin. So it overcomes some things. You just don't know. Just because you have a perception on how that person is and how they were or if they live this type of lifestyle, you just don't know. You loving them in spite of how they look could change their life. Instead of dictating or they call Bible thumpers, and trying to convince them or force them to be something instead of loving them where they are, that may cause them to change just by loving them.
Right. You're talking about religion, but you can't put that same on politics. You can't put that same on culture. You can't put that same on ethnics and race. It's because it's exactly the same diversity, right?
It is.
It is. Yeah. And again, just sit down and talk to each other. And like all these Christian denominations, if a lot of those people that are actually fighting each other would sit down and talk to each other, they would realize, oh wow, the actually 95% of what we're talking about is exactly the same, maybe even 99%. If then people of different ethnic backgrounds sit together, realize, man, we both like chicken and fries. Man, I didn't think that, I thought you eat weird stuff, Right. It's just cultural what you think. What people do behind their closed doors must be something weird, Exactly. I don't want anything to do with it.
Right.
Because you just don't know. And once they let you in, and you witness that over and over, and you're like,
you cook your spaghetti like this? We cook our spaghetti like that. But guess what? It's still spaghetti.
Right.
So it is more common that you don't think. But what's the biggest problem is we're afraid to go behind that door. The ones that's on the other end of the door, locking the door, is just as afraid of somebody on the side trying to come in the door. So, those two people afraid to, somebody afraid to walk in to find something different or experience something different. And the person that's on the other side afraid to bring somebody into their world that they may be judged on something. So
I think, again, it goes back to fear. The fear of the diversity. Because you have your values, you have your customs,
right.
And you're afraid if you bring somebody in who's different, they will change that. Oh, I don't want my kids to act like this. I don't want my kids to do this. This is why so many religions have so much problems letting other religions in their lives, Because, no, they believe like that. I don't want them to influence my kids and my kids get weird. No, I don't want the black people or the white people come to my house,
Yeah.
Because there will be an influence on my kids or my wife or whatever that I don't want. But that's just the fear that's speaking.
Exactly.
That it actually makes your life richer if you know people, and that fear goes away. And all of a sudden, this world looks so much more open and nice, Look, I come from a hateful background, and I hated everything that was different than me. And once I realized I can actually go into these communities and I can go to somebody's house, who's different, and I realize, man, that's exactly like how I live with, okay, these minor differences, cultural differences,
Right.
but at the end it's the same thing, and no, don't do it only one time. It's not like if I say, make a black friend and go to their house and eat dinner, or invite them to your house. I'm not talking about one time.
Right.
That's
I took that
that will
experience.
be your token black or
Right.
white friend,
Yeah.
That's not what I'm talking about. It's like, I've got 3 black friends. I wrote their names down. It's a joke,
Yeah,
but
so-
it's so describing. Sometimes it's really just so you can claim, I know, and the black community is doing this and that. Hear that from a lot of conservatives when
Right.
they then quoting these twins or whatever, or Candace Owens or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
Just the token.
Yeah, the talking
The
person.
yeah,
And then
like-
they put
like-
them up front. See, that black person felt this way about that, but they grew up conservative, or they grew up this, and so
Right.
that's the culture of it. It had nothing to do with the
Then
color.
I'm asking them,
you know?
okay, you're here in this area. How many black friends do you have that you have actually asked about these things? And I've actually had a white friend. He quit being friends over me wearing Black Lives Matter t-shirts, but we talked about the topic before.
Mm-hmm.
He really said, I don't like my own people and that I hate white people. And I'm like, dude, what? and we have a mutual black friend, and they share exactly the same occupation and the same side job too, and about the same age. The black guy is a little bit older, and of course, therefore it can't be like white privilege. No, he's got the same job. He achieved exactly the same things that I achieved, so therefore there's no white privilege.
Right.
You're
Yeah, I've heard that.
and also no, he thinks exactly like I think.
Mhm.
And the fun part is I talked to the black friend one time. I said, is that maybe because you all never talk about these ugly things?
Right.
The
elephant.
and this is exactly what it is. It's more the buddy relationship, and when it comes to touchy topics, you don't talk about it because you're afraid to lose your black buddy or your
Right.
white buddy, maybe.
Or it makes me so different, and
So you rather
called to talk about it, you end up fighting,
right? Yeah,
And
you
then
don't
you
want to fight
distribute.
because okay, we will disagree on that, or you won't understand because the culture is different.
Right.
But it's the same thing. There's a lot of things both sides couldn't understand at this time because, again, at some point they closed their doors.
Right.
And this is where the life split, even if they consider themselves friends or buddies.
Right.
But at some point where the black guy goes home to his black family and everything, closes the door and has dinner, and the white dude goes to his white family and his white wife and closes the door and has dinner. And this is where it splits and where the culture starts.
Exactly.
And this is why it's so important. Again, I have actually a program, and everybody who's listening, who's interested in helping with that, here in the Holly Springs area, even North Mississippi area, up to Olive Branch in Bahia, maybe also Tupelo, Oxford, it doesn't matter. It's called Share a Meal Pledge, and we want to do exactly what we're talking about. If you want to open your kitchen and your living room to a family of a different ethnic background, of a different religious background, or whatever different, maybe political background,
Right.
and want to do that, contact us, sign up. We organize that,
Yeah.
and you can actually host that once a year, twice a year, once a month, whatever you feel comfortable with, and get to know this. Offer that,
Right.
And
So we're
really
not going
have
to
the conversation.
We're not just going to tell you have a dinner and just throw you in the house together and not facilitate it or help you out. So
Right.
don't feel like that's going to be. But hey, we still want to hear from you guys. We got 10 minutes left on the radio. We want to hear from you. So you would dial the 662-252-6692. I'm going to say it again, 662-252-6692. We want to hear from you right before we end this show. We want your input on what we talked about today. And now I've noticed, right? So I've noticed, we just can't, we can't just steer away from, politics. But I've noticed the transitions hadn't happened. We were still kind of up in the air per se, that, about who's going to be president. But I noticed that Joe Biden's his platform, what he's trying to do, he say he wants to look like America, right? So he's trying to build his team of diversity. Someone from the LGBTQ community, some African Americans, some Indians, some whites, and different people like that. And so, how do you feel that administration would be versus what administration the administration that's a part now? Is it going to be a big difference, or is it something that it's just a political stunt? How do you feel about
Let's say
this unit?
I hope it's not a political stunt. I hope it's genuine. I hope they mean it. I think it's a good thing putting an administration together, or the transition team looking like that, representing this country. And I always say, don't forget the other side. This is what I liked when Biden had his speech and said, hey, Republicans, hey, Trump voters, let's unite. This is also part of the diversity.
Mm-hmm.
We need that. And I know there's some Democrats, there's actually a big controversy about it, because some Democrats don't want that. So, oh no, so many Trump voters have done this and done this.
Why are you going to let them help and be a part? Yeah.
No, we have to do that. Look, yes, Biden won the election, but it's not like 70-30. No, it's almost like what, 52-49 or something percent. It's still, it was a landslide, but it was not like that the majority of Americans wanted this versus the majority. No, it's still pretty much split in the middle. I'm grateful that people went and voted, but no matter who the other side voted for, whatever you consider, your listeners consider the other side, no matter what the other side is for you, that's also the diversity. That's also the inclusion we need. Because if we want to build this community together, this country together, we need to do it together. Yes, and this country is diverse, and this is how this transition team looks like. And hopefully, and I said it, I hope that they mean it. I hope it's genuine. And get to know how this country looks like. Because a lot of people just don't know, because they sit in the country or whatever, and go hunting and fishing and just don't know until they turn on the TV, and then it's the liberal media that's telling them. Yeah. No, this is how this country really looks like, and it doesn't have to be a bad thing. And this is the same thing. What I wanted to say, and this is where politicians have made a big mistake. And I bring an example from my past. Okay. The KKK has said, like in the 80s, that white people will be the minority in certain cities, like in 2020. Yeah. To create fear and hate, And people, everybody who was left of the KKK, which was fortunately everybody, said, no, that's hate mongering. This is not going to happen. Well, look, extremist groups are always good pulling facts or statistical facts. Right. And this was a fact. This is a development. Look at Memphis, 70% African American. Look at Holly Springs. You can look at many cities where Hispanic population is bigger than the white population. And yes, in 50 years, I think white people will be the minority in this country. Or maybe
even a lot of races, because of interracial relationships.
But the thing is here, and this is where politicians have failed, I believe, instead to say, oh, the KKK is wrong. Mm-hmm. They should have said, no, they're right. That will happen. But what's bad about it? And this is the problem, because if you tell them, no, they're just stirring hate, it's not going to happen, it looks like you're almost agreeing because it would be a bad thing. Yeah. But it's not happening. And this is I've seen this in many countries, and no, politicians should have said in the 80s and the 90s, whenever right-wing extremist groups, if it's the alt-right, if it's the KKK, if it's the Proud Boys or whatever, whenever they spit these things out, they're often based on a little piece of truth, Yeah. And it's based on fear. Yes, we need to pick it up and say, okay, what are they afraid of? Mm-hmm. And what are they afraid of that's really happening? And is it a bad thing in the first place? Very often it's not a bad thing, because diversity is not a bad thing.
Right.
Well, what are white people afraid of if they would be the minority? Is it maybe like minorities are being treated bad?
Yeah.
Right?
So we're going to get it back.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's like, of course, it's always also the fear, oh my God, somebody else is taking over and they will take our stuff, what we have. They will take our rights, they will take our guns, they will take this, they will take this, they will take this. It's always fear, fear, fear. No, you don't have to be afraid. This is the point. Don't be afraid. It's about diversity. It's okay if that happens.
Right. Yeah, I hear a lot of the conservatives talking about with the mask thing, the reason why they don't promote the mask because it's like they're taking away our rights, and that's just a beginning of them controlling people, on so many different things. So I've heard that, in so many different ways. So, but hey, guys, we thank you for calling in. Listening in. We wanted you to call in 662-252-6692. To talk on this subject, but you can always go back to hear it. And,
right.
So what? Just let them know what platforms that they can hear this.
Right. One little add-on here. We're gonna do next week in next week's episode. We can a little bit chime in the first 10 minutes in this week's topic, and if you listen to this episode after it aired, and you of course can't call in anymore, maybe send us a voice clip on Facebook. Or WhatsApp or whatever, and we can download it, record it, and actually play it here on the radio show, and then answer your question, and you will be almost live on the show, and we can do that. So you still have the possibility, because a lot of our listeners listen to the show on other platforms, either the live stream on Facebook or the live stream that is on the website. Yeah. Or on Apple Music, iTunes, on Spotify, on TuneFM, and all these platforms that you can find us on, or even the video that we're putting on YouTube every Wednesday as well on Facebook. So if you listen to that after it aired, send us that message. Best is on Facebook, just a voice clip. We'll download it, put it on the show, and answer your question in the first 10 minutes in next week's show. And hopefully we get a couple of call-ins. I know we're new. I know this is all new for you. It's new for us here on the station, WKRA. And hopefully next week will be a little bit more vital
to do that. Yeah. So if you want to follow me, you can go ahead and follow me on Facebook at Ray S. Johnson. That's Ray S. Johnson on Facebook. And on Instagram it's Pastor Ray _. If you want to follow me personally on some things I got to do. How can they follow you?
TM Garret. The initials TM and then Garret. Garret. 2 R's and 1 T. If you type in that handle on whatever platform. Last week I was thinking you write down SC. What is SC? What is SC? What is Snapchat? And I was like, no, you won't find me on Snapchat. So I don't have Snapchat. And I'm also not on Parler or whatever. It's, did you hear about it? Yeah, no, I'm not there either. But you find me on Facebook, you find me on Twitter, you find me on Instagram, you find us on YouTube, of course. That's Erasing the Hate. Just type that in, Erasing the Hate, or TM Garret for my personal, professional pages to follow me there. And hopefully you follow us both and see what we're doing and what we're talking about for next week's show, in general, what we're up to.
Yep. Awesome. Well, we thank you guys for tuning in. We want you to have a great evening, and we'll see you here next week on Mondays at 6:00 with Erasing the Hate. See you guys.
See you guys next week here on WKRA FM 92.7 at the C.H.A.N.G.E in Holly Springs. See you next week.